Well, after Bash at the Beach, you're going to start working with Chris Canyon, who's doing a DDP ripoff gimmick and attacking your mom with diamond cutters on TV. He'll threaten to break her neck in a match unless you agree to fight him at the next pay-per-view, with her having to be a slave for 30 days if you lost. Mark, to an outsider, that probably sounds like I took some kind of a hallucinogen before we started this podcast, because it doesn't make any sense, but that was the actual storyline at the time. What's your reaction like when this kind of thing is pitched to you?
Again, at the time, you spoke up, you got heat, didn't say a word about this except yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, or whatever what needed to fit, it fit. Gotcha. Didn't say a word about it. I did what I was supposed to do. They told me to do it, I did it. But anybody in their right mind would have probably spoke up and said, why are we doing this? And why is she on the forklift? And why are we calling it Judy Bagwell on the pole? I mean, all of it to this day, I got no idea because I didn't ask. And because if you ask, you get in trouble. It's called heat. You're supposed to do what you're told. I did what I was told. I went out and had a match with my mother on a forklift, and the match was called Judy Bagwell on a pole match. I don't know.
Hard to wrap your head around it.
It really is. And hear me out. What WCW didn't know is it kind of made sense to people that knew the Bagwells, because the Bagwells owned a lumber company. So having Judy on a forklift was pretty cool to Marietta, Georgia, but it wasn't cool to the world. The world didn't know we owned a lumber company, but people that knew the Bagwells, which is this many people, knew, hey, that must be because she owned a lumber company. And, oh, I get it. But why is it called on a pole? I have no idea why it's called on a pole, but that's what it was called. Judy Bagwell on a pole match.
I'm wondering if they initially thought they could hang her from a harness or something like that from a pole. I don't know.
I never saw no tryout with the harness or anything. It was always told to us a forklift, and I just assumed it was people just got it wrong when they were saying on a pole, but it was in writing on a pole. And she's on a forklift. So I don't know how that got misconstrued. And it was very, very, very crazy. And here's my mother. I can't remember what she was getting paid, but it wasn't enough. And I remember I sat down with Eric on a plane ride home and got her a $300,000 a year deal. And she was going to be a full-time WCW person. If you remember, my mother is one half of the World Tag Team Championships.
Yes.
Her and Rick Steiner won the belt somehow. So
right.
I got her a deal, and literally the plane flight that I got her a $300,000 deal on, we landed, and she had not pancreatitis, something that explodes. I always forget the words.
Oh, like appendicitis?
No, it's not that one. It's something. We got whatever exploded on the flight, straight to the hospital, and we did a story saying that me and Scotty beat her up. And she was over. It was done.
Wow. So she didn't even get to sign the $300,000 a year contract.
Nope. And then by that time, it was almost the end and everything. So
she would have gotten to sit home for the duration of that contract after the buyout from WWE.
Yeah.
Damn. Timing, brother.
Almost had it.
Now, getting physical and getting involved in creative, how did your mom seem to feel about that in general?
She was a tough lady. So, but again, she was still 50-something. So, older lady, but she raised 3 boys and ran a lumber company in the 70s and 80s when women didn't do that. So she was a very powerful woman anyway, very strong. My father whipped me with a belt once in my life. My mother whipped it 10,000 times in my life. So she was the one that swung the belt. She's the one that laid the rules down. She was the boss. We were scared of our father, but she ran the show. And same with wrestling. She had no problem with any of it. She was bruised to hell and back with those diamond cutters, but we kept going with it, and she kept having fun, and she loved it. All the boys loved her, and all the girls loved her too. She was just kind of like the grandmama of the show, you know.
Man, pretty awesome. Yeah, and it's cool to get that perspective because, like, on the surface, a lot of us would, like, I would picture the talent seeing, like, well, she's on TV and, I'm not booked for this one. I'm just working house shows. Like, you'd think some talent would resent it, but no, it's like, it's awesome to hear that people were cool with her being there.
Absolutely. And, she, you think that, she would get a lot of heat and stuff, but I think a big part of it was saved by it wasn't my idea. So Rick Steiner is the one that threw this idea at WCW, and I think that helped a lot. I think it helped that it wasn't me and my mom and getting a bunch of money, and it wasn't like that. It was Rick Steiner's idea. He threw it at Eric, and Eric said yes, and so yeah. So maybe not. But yeah, so I think he suggested it, kept a lot of heat off of me. So, it was, again, it wasn't my idea. So I think he was accepted more. But I think if it would have been my idea and she came in with a bunch of money of a contract, then it may have been a little problem. But, like even that first time she got in the ring, she was told two things and she didn't do either one of them. She was told not to get in the ring, and she was told definitely don't touch Scott Steiner. She got in the ring, which is what I wanted her to do anyway, and she went to Scotty, and Scotty almost broke her wrist.
Because he wound up grabbing her, right?
Well, she went to grabbing him, and he said, "Listen, lady, you ain't my mama." But he really was against this angle, again, against this storyline. He was really against it because of women in pro wrestling. He was dead against it. But it being his brother's idea kept the heat off me. It wasn't my idea. It was Rick's. So it was Rick's idea, and it worked. It was really good. But she wasn't supposed to go to Scotty, and Scotty's like, he almost broke her wrist.
Well, Chris Kanyon is the guy you're going to be working with at New Blood Rising. Very talented performer, and a guy who was actually the subject of a Dark Side of the Ring episode himself. What can you tell us about being around Chris?
I don't have any stories on this one, man. I mean, none. I mean, Chris was a great guy, a great worker, but we just had two complete different cliques, and we wasn't around each other at all. We really wasn't. I respected him. I was very nice to him all the time. He was very nice to me, very cordial. But I didn't know Chris Kanyon. I didn't know him.
Yeah, it's from what I've been told, a really talented guy, and man, just a tragic story what ended up happening with him, because he's one of those guys. Like a lot of the moves that we see on TV today were actually invented by Chris Kanyon, apparently.
Yeah, he had a lot of talent going on with himself, and kind of unknown. A lot of the guys didn't know the stuff you're talking about, but yeah, he was. He had a lot of stuff going on that was really good, and he was a great worker. But he just a lot of demons going on too.
But I'm wondering, coming out of the match afterwards, you and Chris Kanyon, like, did you feel like, okay, not too bad, or did you feel like it was a complete disaster on pay-per-view?
I'll maybe even ever watch that match back, but I think going into it, we were embarrassed. So you can't come out of it too much better. As you said it to me, I remember lowering Mon from the forklift and not being totally humiliated. So I think it overall was pretty good, and it made sense, and there was an ending to the storyline, and I lowered my mother with victory, and it kind of made sense.
It's not great creative, but I've certainly seen worse in wrestling. So it's at least there's that. One interesting thing that happened was that David Arquette is going to come out, and it'll be his final appearance with WCW. He'll do a run-in during the match. And I'm just wondering what's going through your head whenever he had become WCW champion earlier in the same year, 2000.
It was not good. It was definitely everybody knew it was bad that, David Arquette was our world heavyweight champion. It was again above my pay grade, though. Who would I even take that to? I couldn't take it to nobody. So I remember talking with Lex and Sting about it, and hearing the rumors from Nash on opinions, and everybody's opinion was that it was crazy. It was out of control, and nobody knew what to do about it. It was nuts.
Did you have any kind of a personal relationship or spend much time with David Arquette?
I didn't. Hello, how you doing? Just nice banner, but that's about it.
And last question, and then I'll let you go. I'm curious about how the locker room morale was at the time. Because the perception from Russo was that Hogan was holding the company down and holding down young talents. This was the first WCW pay-per-view after Hogan's departure from the company. Was there optimism about the future and like, okay, maybe we can turn this thing around and make things better? Or, was it like, the Titanic had already hit the iceberg at this point?
I don't think there was enough time for any of that to really take place. It just was all gone before we knew it. It was no time to regroup. I think everybody was banking on the rumor I mentioned earlier. Everybody was banking on that Bischoff was going to buy the company. And I remember the last match we had, I'm almost positive, was in Florida. I think it was Jacksonville, and we had the match with Sean O'Hara and Jindrak and O'Hara, I think. Or no, it was Palumbo and O'Hara, I think. And they beat me in Luger. And that night, me and Lex were like, Johnny, are you kidding? Why? And Johnny goes, look, man, don't even complain about it. We're taking a 6-week break. We're going to take a 6-week break, and we're going to come back anyway. So I wouldn't bitch about it, guys. Just don't worry about it. Who cares? And so we didn't. Who cares? And we made a little joke about it where I laid in the ring for a long time after they beat us, just to do something against the grain. And we kind of laughed about that, but that was all that happened. And we were known. And then the next night we show up, and Vince is at Panama City.